session. I am SINGH, taking care of general psychology. We come down to the last few units, which is Unit 9 and Unit 10 of the same. Today we are continuing after the physical development, the stage development, the cognitive and moral development of humans. Speaking of this, moral and cognitive development is one of the most biggest pillars of human development if we look at it as such. Why? Because cognitive development theories and cognitive development as such talks about the development of the process of thinking, reasoning, decision making, problem solving. So these are those development of our times which usually takes care of how we decide in the world, how we solve our day to day living, our process of understanding of the environment, how do we interpret the world, how do you attend situations and perceive the environment. So thinking of that, cognitive development is one of the biggest pillars of the human development. What are we going to look forward to in the Unit 9 today is theories of cognitive development. One of the two most famous theories of cognitive development were Jean Piaget. It's Jean Piaget. As it's a French word, we speak it as Jean Piaget. Then we speak about Vygotsky. After Vygotsky, we will speak about the theory of moral development. We have one of the most famous psychologist of moral development, which is Kohlberg, who also decided to give his theories in terms of stages. So he also stated that moral development in human beings takes place in terms of stages. So let's start with Jean Piaget's concept of cognitive development. Few of the things that we should remember is that Piaget's thought about cognition was that children has the capacity to create their own world. That suggests that when we are talking about the ability to reason, the ability to think, the ability to decide well, this all is something which a child is himself capable of. That means the child is capable of constructing his own world. The child is capable of making sure that one stage of development is complete contribution of him or herself. And also, another thing that Piaget stated was the development takes place in terms of stages, and these stages are progressive in nature. That means the development is not something which is a smooth process, but it discontinues. That means there's a stage 1, there's a stage 2, 3, and 4, and there can be possibilities that in one stage the child is doing averagely, and probably in the other stage the child does really well. So it's been divided into stages. Also, he stated that the cognitive development involves processes which are actually based on action and later progresses into changes into mental processes, which suggests that the actions that we are doing right now and the things that we are putting up right now is usually the base of what we will get as changes in our mental operations. Mental operations suggest in our mental capacity with every stage going by. So this was the ideology of Jean Piaget's theory, working in stages, talking that every stage is working in progressive order. Child has the capacity to build up their own stages. That means the child does not require any sort of support from the environment, but has the capacity to create their own development. Let's start with the stages and some key points before that. So, cognitive development of Jean Piaget stated some of the points that we need to remember before we know the theory. One is schemas, adaptation, assimilation. What are schemas according to Piaget? Schemas is a kind of a framework that help us interpret the world. So we make framework for everything. Like for example, today being as adults and teenagers, we make framework of friends. Friends, according to probably an individual, is someone who's honest, can someone that you can fall back on, and honesty, it's always communicating, can trust, is a confidant for you for life. So these are people that you can rely on, depend upon, trust upon. So that's your framework. Anyone who falls in that framework is your friend. So that's a scheme. That's a schema. That's a framework for that particular concept. We have concepts of animals. The knowledge of animals is also understood by children by schemas, which is a set of rules that helps them interpret that set of animals in the environment. Second is adaptation. Adaptation, as per Piaget, was fundamentally he stated that this is a biological process, and it is about being able to adapt even without a nervous system or a brain. So when we talk about adaptation, it divides into two processes. So adaptation, yes, is both a biological process but a psychological also, but more biological because it talks about coping with the circumstances and demands of society and being able to function. Like your adaptability should be so that as soon as the stress comes in, that's what we talk about in today's life. As soon as stress comes in, we should be filled with resources to be able to take care of it. Now, adaptation, being a biological process according to Piaget, has been divided into two parts, which is it has kind of two types into it, which is assimilation. So, adaptation process can happen through assimilating or accommodating. Speaking of assimilation, the process of taking in information into our previously existing schemas is known as assimilation. That means the process of that you add on new information on the already framed thought about something, which is a schema, is called assimilating, which is getting the new into the already old thing and adjusting it there. That's called assimilation. Then we talk about accommodation. Accommodation involves altering the existing schemas and making space for the new experience, a new change, or probably a new result or an idea. This talks about accommodating by making changes in your schema. So let's take an example. When we speak about animals as an example, and we know that there are animals which are, amphibians, there are rodents, there are domestic animals that we speak about. So domestic animals are animals that can be domesticated at home and can be kept at home. So this is something which is a schema, which we should know as a framework for domestic animals. Now, the assimilation of this schema is going to be that we get new information in the already existing framework of animals, which are domesticated animals. So the new framework would be these animals can also be, used for other purposes. Like a lot of people make today's blogging and YouTube videos on these animals. So see, they're actually doing what? They are adding on some new information on the already existing domestic animals, that these animals can actually be so trained that they can made to look lovable. There could be awareness regarding them, using them. Now, that's assimilation. Now, accommodation is making changes in the animal, the framework of the animal, and then adding new information. So, making changes could be probably the thought that domesticated animals cannot be kept outside, they cannot be left alone, they cannot be something which could be lent out to others. So that's something which is not domesticated. When you start using your animals for money, that is not something that is domesticated ideally. So accommodation is making changes in that thought of domestication and adding new experiences onto it. So that is accommodating. Then and identifying these three concepts are going to be way too helpful when we understand Jean Piaget's theories. That is schema, adaptation happening in two processes, which is assimilation and accommodation. Now, moving ahead is the last one, which is equilibration, which is Piaget believed that all children try to strike a balance, between accommodation and assimilation, which is achieved by a mechanism called equilibration. So when we talk about equilibration, it is that a bit of assimilation and a bit of accommodation will help you support your livability and thought process, which is your cognition. That means we cannot learn about new environment just by adding information in the old one. That can lead to mental overload. Like, let's take an example. When we move from one class to the other, we just do realize this concept of education that the Darwin's theory of survival of fittest, we need to perform better than the others. That's how you will be probably the achievers of the group. So this is assimilation, which is, you are taking information on information in the already existing information in a class. So you're in class 6, you get more information, you move to 7, you get more information, you move to 8. So this is like assimilating. Now accommodating would be making changes in the old one, which is like being in the college. College talks about making changes in the already existing information. So something that you've learned from school now will be applied. It's going to be changed the way you learn the theory and apply to the environment. So remember, equilibration happens when you use a mix of two. You cannot always keep accommodating because that will lead to a mental overload. Neither can you keep assimilating one after the other. This completes one of the most important key points of Jean Piaget. Let's move to the theory ahead. The theory was given in stage model. The first model talks about sensory motor. This model is itself subdivided into six further parts, which means it has six parts within. So the first is sensory motor that starts from zero as soon as the child is born till the 18 or 2 years of life. See, this is being the first most and the earliest most stage. We need to know that children are usually communicating at this point of time, not or with a hardcore physical ability, but something which is sensory ability and motor abilities. Sensory ability is using all the five senses, and motor is muscle. So children have the capacity to interact, to be able to understand the environment, and do the beginning of understanding the world using two most important parts, which is the senses and the motor abilities. So, beginning, we understand the senses give rise to something which are reflexes, and ending with a complex combination of sensory motor skills. Also, the reason the stage is called as the sensory motor is we are using our senses to understand the world and communicate it through our reflexes, which is motor actions. So that is the reason that it's called a sensory motor. Further divided into subparts, which is what all children, which is infants, do in the first 2 months and what are they achieving in the next. So according to Piaget, the first 1 month of the child is just understands the environment purely through inborn reflexes. So that at this point of time, the child is only learning the environment and communicating by crying, by suckling, by looking around, by blinking their eye, yawning often. So these are some reflexes which are obviously adaptable in nature and survival based. This is the first thing that the child expresses their understanding of the world and their comfort and discomfort using reflexes. Coming to the second is primary circular reaction, which is from first month till the fourth month. This is the time that the child works on moral action of his own, which serves as the stimulus, and they keep responding as a circular motion, which is um, they use their own action as the stimuli to respond to something. Like, for example, we've seen a lot of rattles which are hanging onto the child's pram and places where they're sleeping or probably they're lying down. So they use their own action, which is touching the rattle. The touching of the rattle gives a lot of noise. That noise gives them happiness. They understand that their own action can stimulate something and provide them happiness. So that's like their own actions creating a stimuli, giving a response, making them happy. So that's something which usually initial months of the play activities are serving as. Then we move to something which is the secondary circular reaction, which is starting from the fourth month till the eighth month, which is the time the child becomes more focused on the outside world. They become more concerned with what's happening around, and they start repeating their actions in order to trigger a response from the environment. So, for example, smiling continuously at people to understand that what is going to, they are trying to trigger a reaction in the environment because they want to know what's happening around. Also, in the environment, making, climbing around their area, places where they are sitting, purposely moving out of their areas, crawling down one path always to see what's happening. They purposely and intentionally does this thing so that to see if they move out of this space, what will happen, what will it lead to, what will it trigger. So that is secondary circular reactions, which are obviously more and better than the previous one. After that, the child is very interested in the outside world and they intentionally do some actions regarding the same. We come to coordination of secondary reaction, which is from the 8th month till the 12th month, which is the child is now entering to 1 year. These are more coordinated and complex responses, which suggests child intends to respond to your action. So if you wave on the child is going to wave. If you want to smile on the child is going to be smiling. So this is the combination of circular reactions, all the reactions which are made intentionally to create a response. Then we come to tertiary reactions. Tertiary reactions are starting from 12 months and goes on till the second year of the child. Here the child begins to try and understand the world by trial and error, experimentation. This stage is completely filled with experimentation, which is from the time of 1 to 2. This is the time in between the child learns to walk, the child is enjoying holding things, jumping around, because every learning of the child here is a trial and error. This stage is filled with experimentation. The stimulus to response is very random. They are doing a lot of activities to understand what's happening. Then we come to the last, which is the early representation. Child begins to develop symbols representing events and objects. This is the most structured, part of the child. This is the most structured part of the first stage, where the child now is able to indicate people with symbols. Like for example, if they understand that the tree is big, they'll always call it big tree. So this is like a symbol that the thing is always big. For example, if they always find their mothers lovable, they're always going to smile at them and call them out of a name, or draw something which is always related to that, probably a heart. When a mother is represented, they make a symbol of a heart for their mother. So they have now started interacting with symbols, indicating the environment through symbols. Now, moving to the second stage, which is called the pre-operational stage. The reason this stage is called pre-operational, it goes from zero and goes on approximately to from 0 to 2 was sensory motor. From 2 to 5, 6 is pre-operational. This is a stage where the child does not really know about any operation. Operation is logic thinking, mental representation, which is logic, symbols. They are not aware of it. Their language is also developed, or that's the hallmark of this stage. Their extensive vocabulary and language. Operations are not developed. They cannot add. They cannot subtract. They do not understand the concept of subtraction or addition at the time of 3. They are very intuitive at this stage. They also have this capacity of egocentrism, which is found in this stage, which is the difficulty of understanding other people's experiences except their own. So let's take an example. A child is feeling thirsty. They pick up a bottle and drink water. They'll ask everybody, because they feel if they're experiencing this emotion and this thought, everyone is experiencing it. So they have a difficulty in understanding other people's experiences. That's why it's called egocentrism, which is we are centered to our own life and living, which is called egocentrism. Then we come to concrete operation. Concrete operation comes with a lot of abilities in the child which they did not have at the stage of 6. This goes on from 7 to 11, 12 years of age. And at this point of time, the child knows mental operation. Yes, this is absolutely true. Child is able to understand all the math, science at this stage. They're in class 8th, and they're in class 8th and 7th. They understand the logic of why rain is happening, what is the mechanism of the environment. They're very logical thinkers. They are concrete thinkers. They have a very concrete thought about everything. Also, at this point of time, they cannot abstract things. Creativity, hypothesizing things is a difficult process for them. So they're logical thinkers. Few other points are they have the ability to induce, which is they can go from specific to general, which is something that they see in one person or one community area or a gender, they can apply it towards. So their thinking goes from specific to general. That means they're able to conclude at a bigger level. They also have this concept of conservation, which they can now do, which is they can, they can make the changes in the quantity remaining the same apart their appearances, which is they can make the changes in the quantity in terms of volume, mass, height, which is they understand that a glass, a glass which is circular and a glass which is tall, they both have 500 ml of water. No matter you keep changing the shape. Also, if you give them a ball and roll it into a cylinder, they can get it back to a ball. So this is the ability that they're able to conserve, understand the concept of quantity changes, and with quantity changing despite that the appearance doesn't change. This also gets them into a newer aspect which is called reversibility that I gave you an example of. This is one of the most used example in childhood times of cognition and cognitive development. Giving clays to children and telling them to make changes in their shape and size. So speaking of this, remember if the child is given a round clay and then a same round clay is converted in front of them into a cylinder, and they say that the cylinder is larger and taller and has more clay into it, that means they have not developed concrete operations here. They understand the concept of reversibility when they can understand the mass can change into different form, the volume can change into different form. Also, this comes with the idea of conservations also. Reversibility is a very directly related concept of conservation. So that means counting from 1 to 100, 100 to 10 reversibility, being able to use number 5 and create multiple addition to it, which is 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 3 is 5, so 3 plus 2 is 5. So this is the way reversibility, which is the ability of developing conservation of substance and also learning that a shape and size quantity change can get back to the same again. So this is all the features of concrete development. Let's understand it also through an image. First we are sensory motor, which is till 2 years of age. Then 2 to 7 we are pre-operational, which is understanding the world through language. Language is the hallmark of this stage, and mental images. Concrete operational is 7 to 12, something which involves mathematics, logical thinking, very concrete thinking, not being possible to have abstract thinking. The last is something which is formal operation according to Jean Piaget. And he stated that after this, the cognition is developed. We only understand wisdom. The development and growth is still 12 and onwards, which is still the teenagers in 20 years of life. He stated that this time we are able to act not only concrete thing, but also we are more of an abstract thinker. We are able to hypothesize things, which is we have the ability of hypothetical thinking. We are very scientific reasoning people, which is formal operations. That's why it's called formal, because we are now capable of deductive reasoning, which is taking the general and moving it to specific, systematic planning, hypothetical thinking that we are going to talk about, which is logic is a paramount at this stage. We use the general principle and determine a specific outcome. Also, this involves a hypothetical situation, which is, the reason that class 11th and 12th has so much of hypothetical questions, which is anecdotal question. If a person is running with this amount of speed and this amount of distance is covered, what is their other mathematical equation, that what is going to be the time that they've utilized in covering that much of speed. Also with psychology, we can talk about defense mechanism, talking about if a person is actually always stating that he or she their colleague has hatred towards a person X, whereas it could be them who has hatred towards person S. Identify the defense mechanism. Such anecdotal questions, such value-based question, which has alternative answers, multiple answers that could be thought about, is a result of this, system and this stage, which is called formal operation. Or formal operation is also capable of, as said, abstract thinking, which was not there before. Also, problem solving is a paramount of this stage. We're able to systematically organize a concept, give a multiple options in solutions, and devise a plan accordingly. Also, this completes with Jean Piaget's theory. We have another image starting with 0 to 2. Some of the concepts which were not discussed, we can now discuss it here. See, when we talk about 0 to 2, there's a concept of object permanence and deferred imitation, which is children are always at 0 to 2 and infant are continuously imitating and learning. There is goal-directed actions, which is they're continuously and intentionally doing an action for a result. And object permanence is there, which is child learns that an object, if it's hidden, it's there, even if it's hidden. So object permanence is developed by the end of 2 years of age, which is the child can now play hide and seek. He knows if something is hidden, it was there, we need to find. But when a child is only half a year, which is 6 months, you show them an object, like for example, you show them a phone, you hold them and you show it to them and you remove it and put it at the back. They will forget it and they will even perceive that the phone did not exist in the beginning. So that is not having object permanence, which is achieved by the 2 years of age. As discussed, pre-operation is an age which egocentrism comes and symbolic thought process. Concrete operation was logical thinking, conservation, reversibility. Formal operation becomes obviously inductive and deductive both. Very abstract thinkers, hypothetical thinkers, and at the same time have the ability of problem solving. This finishes with Piaget's magnificent theory, which has been used and something which has been accepted worldwide. Even today's time, we actually judge our children on the basis of this and use a lot of rating scales which are based on this development stages. So this completes with Jean Piaget. After Jean Piaget, there was another psychologist, another famous psychologist, Lev Vygotsky. He was a Russian psychologist, a contemporary of Jean Piaget only, who developed a theory which was a little different from Jean Piaget. He stated that my theory is a theory of socio-cultural theory. He did state that children have the capacity to grow, but children have the capacity to grow on the basis of, socio-cultural environment. That's why the theory was labeled as a socio-cultural theory. Three key principles of these theories are society and culture of the children. He stated some of the most important points that we, missed out in Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget's theory was not having it. That's why this theory is an extension. So signs and language of the society is extremely important for children. So whatever that they listen and they see is extremely important for their development. Inputs from others, especially people who are learned individuals and knowledgeable individuals, is fairly very important for children's development. So if a children interacts with the elder individual who is far more better, far more knowledgeable, the child tend to imitate and take from those people. Then coming to something which is the last part, which is a concept of central concepts which are far more important. Three more central concepts which were given by Vygotsky, which is very different from Jean Piaget's theory. This is called MKO, scaffolding, which is the second one, and we will also do the zone of proximal development. So let's understand what is MKO, which is more knowledge others, which suggests that he defined that there's an intelligence, the capacity to learn from instructions. So yes, intelligence at times does come from the fact that we learn it from others, we observe others and learn. So according to him, these are those people who are knowledgeable and have the better expertise or what do you call this? They have a better understanding of that core than the others. And the MKO can help in improving the skills of the children also and make them better people and have better examples in front of them. So according to Vygotsky, MKO are the more knowledgeable surroundings or more knowledgeable others which provide a lot of input for children to grow when children interact with them. Like, for example, the reasons we have had even computers today, computer in children is far more expensive, the computer knowledge. At our times, we also had computer labs, and computer was not only just restricted to drawing and painting, but we were also learning Microsoft, which was very new to us, and we only knew the names of the documents. That's all. But our interaction with that MKO, which is more knowledge others, made us better people, made us being able to understand that what are these documents and what was a computer looks like in terms of hardware and software. So this is what the ideology of Vygotsky was, that interaction with an MKO, which was more knowledge others, is going to help children develop better and better than what they alone can do. Then the other concept, according to them, was Vygotsky's concept of zone of proximal development. So speaking of zone of proximal development, this is a very beautiful concept which we can see around our children only. This suggests that the concept stays. It is very close to MKO, but then there is a comparison on what we had before and what we have later. This says that there is a difference between the present level of development of the children, which is attained without any assistance, and the same level of knowledge and skills, which is of the children attained with the help of some expertise or an assistance who has potential to make them learn and do better. So see, on the image also, we see that there are skills and knowledge, what children can do on their own, and skills and knowledge beyond when assistance is given, and what child cannot do on their own. So if you make this interact together, this comes to a little zone which is called the zone of proximal development, which is this zone which allows children to learn something more than what you can expect. So speaking of this, zone of proximal development speaks about skill, difference in the development of skill when the child learns alone and when the child is given assistance and guidance and is learning. So that difference is called zone of proximal development. Every child learns more when they are associated to somebody who's an expert, who knows better, and in an environment also. We just cannot talk about people, but also environment, which is better. Then we come to a concept called scaffolding. Scaffolding is a temporary structure. It is made up of wooden planks and metal posts to support the workmen in constructing and maintaining and repairing a building. So that's what scaffolding was. Actual term. Scaffolding was actually temporary structures, a blueprint of a building. And Vygotsky used this term to describe social and instructional support provided by the more knowledgeable others to the children to learn new concepts and skills. So these are all items and support which are provided by more skilled people that children do not have on their own. I'll give you a very good example of scaffolding. Today there's a concept of dummy schools which are coming for children at the age of 10th, 11th and 12th, which help them support and rigorously train them for IIT and PMTs. But they do not go to schools. It's a dummy school where they fill up your class 11th and 12th registration, and you are at home only studying for something which is your FITGs, your IITs, and your medical exams. You know what we miss out over here? The instructional support and interactional wisdom of a teacher. So, what is different between a dummy school and actually functioning labeled schools? That school gives you extracurricular activities, the wisdom of the world, the interaction with a learned individuals, not one teacher but multiple teachers, ability to represent yourself. So, your social interactions and social emotional development is far better than children who are going to dummy schools. And this is what is scaffolding all about. The instructional support and the knowledge is the scaffolding. The support which is required for your entire blueprint as an individual, as a being to grow is called scaffolding. That completes with the concept of Jean Piaget and cognitive development. So we understood that cognitive development could be understood on the basis of two people. One was Jean Piaget and the others was Vygotsky. Jean Piaget had stated that development happens in stages and children have the capacity to develop on their own. That means they require no support from going from one stage to the other. Then speaking of Vygotsky, Vygotsky stated that he has this thing of society and culture paramount, is very paramount for development of children, because he gave three concepts which talks that cognitive development happens only when we have a stimulating environment and when we have people who are knowledgeable people around us. So he spoke about NKO, he talks about zone proximal development, and something which is scaffolding, which is far more different and has an impact that a culture and society and learned levels of people around makes a huge lot of difference, which could be seen in the zone of proximal development. So this was the completion of cognitive development, how cognition is so important and how it is progressive in nature. Also, speaking about now, after cognitive development, one of the most important aspects of development is also moral. Morals are something which is the rationality of the world and also rationality of a cultural system, which is the rightness and the wrongness of an environment. This moral development theory, very famous moral development theory, was given by Lawrence Kohlberg, and Kohlberg actually extended the theory of Jean Piaget, which was given. Jean Piaget also gave a moral development, and he gave only two moral development stages: autonomous and heteronomous. So autonomous was to children and heteronomous was the adult. On top, Kohlberg stated that we cannot divide the moral development on the basis of just two stages. We need to learn more about children over here. So Vygotsky theories was based upon stories which was given to children, which is dilemmatic situations which were given to children, and whatever children decided actually helped them, support him building those dilemmas that he gave to children. Like, let's take an example. I'm just giving a random example to make you understand that when we talk about stories, the stories that he spoke about was, let's take an example, a jar of cookies kept on the drawer, and children were told to wait till the time the parents come in. Some children waited, some children just went in, opened the jar and ate it. So that is dilemmatic situations. What to do, what not to do. Also, parents kept, a whole, wallet filled with money to children at the age of 4 and the children at the age of 7, and told them, don't use it until I come back. You can only use the money when I come back to you. Probably the younger ones will not, but the elder ones feel we need it right now. Probably we could use it tomorrow at the school, or probably we can use it tomorrow at the cafeteria in school, and they take it out, two notes out of it and keep it with them. So these were dilemmatic situations, and he created an actual dilemma, and he observed somebody. His famous dilemma was Heinz dilemma, and he proposed on that dilemma, he proposed 6 stages, which were divided into 3 levels. So we go from 0 to again teenagers' time. Moral development is largely explored and expanded till teenagers and adulthood, and after that it doesn't, which means that moral development also expands and goes on till teenagers, which is 17 to 18. After adulthood, we have our set of morals, principles, and ethics already formed. So let's understand these stages now, which are divided into 3 levels. So the first level that we talk about is the level of pro-conventional morality. This level goes on and stays till the age of 0 to 9. So we find this level of pre-conventional morality till 9. See, the reason it's called pre-conventional, Children do not have their own convictions at this point of time. This is the time before that. So before 9 years of age, children are primarily deciding on what is right and wrong according to the expectations of adults, which is expectations of teachers, parents, rules of expectations of teachers and parents, which needn't be broken. So the first stage we talk about here is stage one, which is the obedience and punishment stage. Here, actions of children are dictated by reward and punishment given by authority. So if mother says you pick up another candy from here today, you are not going to get candies ever the entire 1 week. Punishment. The child does not pick up candy not because understanding it's right or wrong or how unhealthy or bad or good it is, but punishment is to be given. My actions will be dictated by the fact that I'll be punished, so let's not do it. Then this stage goes on till 4 to 5 years of age, and then we come to 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8, 9. This is the time where individualism and exchange as second stage of level 1 start. This stage is a self-interest driven, and child understands for the first time that different individual may have different viewpoints, and action is considered morally correct according to their best situation. Like giving an example, at the age of 4, if you pick up somebody else's pencil and start writing with it, the child will go home and complain. There's this child in my class who picks up other people's pencils and writes with it, and it's not good. So this is why, because we have taught you'll be punished if you do such an activity, and it's wrong. Given by authority, completely externalized. The morals are given by others. In the same stage, by the age of 9, children understand that people do some actions on the kind of, they do actions on the basis of where they fall, what are their needs, and what is best for them. So at the age of 9, if they see that their other friends are actually not having the resources to buy things, they will share pens. And even if they pick up the pen from their pouch and their stack of pens, they will not say anything. Because now they understand other people's viewpoint and they feel it's fine taking it, it's not stealing, it's because they do not have resources. So that completes with the first level, coming to second stage, which is exchange in individualism. Now let's come to the second level that talks about conventional morality. This is the stage of moral development which is marked by acceptance of social rules given by the society, which could be the laws of the society, which could be the ethics given largely by the country. So during this time, the adolescent and adults internalize moral standards. They have learned from their role models of society. So by this time, in the initial times of 8, 9, and 10, 11, the child understands that we need to accept what the world is giving us. The society's norm is right. It is good for everybody. And at the same time, as we move towards, adolescent, the time which is the second stage leading to 13, 14, is the time that we develop our own principles. We start internalizing our own morals. So we now will not act according to if we are punished or, we are rewarded, but if it's right or wrong according to you. So every moral is now being internalized, and we have role models also that we look on to. We have observations of people, and we do have aspiring models in front of us at this stage. So 2 levels over here is good interpersonal relationship, which is the intention of the actor is more important by judging their moral values. So as I said in the beginning, this is more conventional, internalized. This is the time that people will not tell that what he did is right and wrong, but will judge them on their intentions. What are their intentions? Are their intentions wrong? So did they lie because they are wrong, or they lied because it was important for them? So this is where the difference will strike as soon as we are 8, 9, and 10. Then coming to the time which is maintaining social order, by 10, 11, 12, you realize children at the age of peak teens, the 10th class, they are doing the MUNs, Model United Nations. They're talking about social order, constitution, what is important for the society. Their awareness about the world and the law holistically is changing, and so is their concept about morality and judgment is. Then we come to the last, which is called the post-conventional morality, or morality which is completely internalized. This is the peak time of adolescent, which is 15, 16, and 17, 18. This is like the 5th and the 6th stage of development. Very few people reach at this stage, not everybody. This involves the 5th stage and the 6th as level 3. This is social contract and individual rights. In this, the child is approximately 14, 15. Individual or child understand that different people and the community may hold different views and laws. The laws of the society are not rigid edicts, rather should be changed, and with the change of time, the need of the society. This is something which children learn at the times of teenager, that not everyone will use the laws of the society as everybody else. So every law is accustomed to a sector, section, and race. They also feel that laws are not absolute in nature. They can change according to what an individual needs. So we are now depending upon that the world should keep changing as per the community, races, and generation. Also, social order and social contract is important. It's important to hold that a community gives us rights and order, but they could be held differently for different people. So we do understand about at this stage we understand reservations, concept about reservations. We do understand the concept about gender differences and why both genders are different and equal in their own ways. So this is that time, and then we come to the last, which is universal principle. This is according to Kohlberg the last stage, but not everybody reaches this stage. This stage judges individual judge morality of the actor based on some universal principle that transcends the society's rule and regulation. This is the time that we are beyond morality, a little more in terms of universal principles and wisdom. When we talk about whatever done will always come back, it's universal to all. We should know that hard work is the key. Whatever kind of hard work that you're giving will lead to results. But remember, as Kohlberg said, this level of morality is not always reached by everybody. We do get stuck to good interpersonal relationship or maintaining social order, at times only individual rights, and do not come to the last level also at times. So these are three levels which tells us from pro-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. This is how moral development, the righteous and the wrongness of an individual is in their mind, function from the age of 1 to 3 till 20 years of life, which is 19 to 18 years of life, which is making them move towards and settle towards adulthood. This finishes with moral development, saying again that moral development happens stage-wise. Every stage is progressive and different from the other. And it's not necessary that we all reach to the final stage in the same way. So this is how moral development looks like. The first is avoiding punishment, completely internalized. Then we come to self-interest, which is exchange and individualism. Pre-conventional goes on till 9 years of age, approximately starting from 2-3 and going on till 9. Then we come to the second one, which is a very small time, which is from 9 to 14. As I said, this is like a good boy, good girl image where we are good interpersonal relationship, wanting to judge people only on their interest and intent. And social order, we understand about constitutional laws and etc. The last is post-conventional, which is the final stage, which is the principles and social contract. This finishes with moral development of humans and human development. Now, as finishing the unit 8 with unit 9, we come to the final unit that talks about what is the application of psychology. General psychology always gets completed by knowing where do we apply it and how is the theoretical learning applied in the environment. We studied memory in this content, we studied human development, we studied stage development, personality, and intelligence. We have to see where is this applicable now in society. So speaking of this, we will start with clinical counseling. So let's just go ahead. Where is psychology nowadays fairly applicable and evidently visible to us in the environment? Starting with the most important and the most evident, most visible in our society and functional as our society is clinical and health. So clinical psychologists are psychologists which performs treatment of people using treatment of people and treatment of problems which are of clinical nature, which is severe problems like severe psychological disorders and emotional disorders, which is personality disorders, schizophrenia. These disorders are treated clinically only, which is with the help of psychotherapy and testing, diagnosis, everything systematically is done. So clinical psychologists deal with clinical disorders which are severe in nature. These people are found in hospitals. They are not capable of giving medication because they do not have a medical degree. They study grads, MSc, BSc, grads level and a master's level in MSc. Also, a lot of times, a lot of them goes to PhD levels. So, which is Doctorate of Psychology or Doctor of Philosophy, which is Psych D and PhD. So that's how their knowledge is, and they sit in hospitals. So they're treating severe disorders and treatment and diagnosis with the help of psychotherapy. There's a lot of confusion between psychiatrists and psychologists because they sit in the same area, which is hospitals. It is not the same. The biggest difference that we found in psychiatrists is these are medical doctors pursuing MBBS and then taking MDS psychiatry, capable of treating people with the help of only medications. They do not provide psychotherapy to anybody, but they treat people through medications. And clinical psychologists finds out better ways of diagnosing, treating, preventing psychological disorders using standardized tests and techniques. So this is how these two are different despite they sit in the same environment. Now, moving ahead, we've already discussed clinical. Let's move to a lighter portion, which is counseling psychology. Counseling psychology talks about, again, psychologists with work with emotional and behavioral concerns, but they are something which is milder in nature. So these emotional and behavioral concerns and problems are milder in nature. So this could be failure in life, emotional disturbances, interpersonal conflicts. It could be career-related career failures, behavioral problems, slow learning, overeating, obesity, lack of concentration, lighter things. But counseling psychologists are found in a variety of areas, right from NGOs to hospitals to centers to provide treatment. So, and they take care of milder concerns, which could be anxiety, a little bit of OCD, mild depression, failures in societies, emotional disturbances, emotional difficulties with other people, etc. This is how the two looks different. Clinical psychology takes care of psychopathology, where we talk about counseling, deals with life stressors, difficulties, milder difficulties of life. Counseling psychologists are present everywhere from universities, mental health care centers, NGOs, even hospitals and private practices. Clinical psychologists mostly are restricted to hospitals, clinic and private practices, severe mental illnesses and supportive healthcare mental illnesses, which is milder in nature. They provide clients with coping ability. There we take care of treatment of mental illnesses, which is clinical. So this completes with clinical and counseling. Let's move to health psychology, one of the most growing field in today's time. Health psychologists are actually psychologists which explore the factors that impacts health and with the use of psychological principles. So here we see that how mentally, physically ill is also having concerns of mental illnesses. Like for example, APA suggested, which is American Psychological Association, established to advance contribution of psychology for the understanding of healthcare, which is physical illness and health. The reason for this was that it is found that people who are going through, diabetes, extreme blood pressure also goes through this physical illness is also accompanied with a lot of psychological stress, which is diabetes patient can be prone to depression because of the dietary concerns, and also people with high blood pressure are always at the edge of the world. They are filled with anxiety. Also people going at times why cancer patients are provided with a lot of counseling and therapy to boost that morale and will that they can go on through the chemo and clinical chemotherapies. Chemotherapies are very, very, painful. Radioactive therapies, they're very painful in nature. And for that, we do require a health psychologist to support them in terms of their morale, in terms of their psychological processes, that they're able to go through that emotionally, physically tiring illness, which is aided in their body. So EAP suggested we need to dwell into psychology along to understand health illnesses and illness and body psychology more. Now, moving to another sector of understanding, which is work in organization, a growing field, a corporate sense of field. This is the first type is engineering psychology, a very new field. Usually at the moment, this is used for conducting researches on machinery, computers, automobiles, and then further these researches are applied to industries and work organization. Psychologists of this field are responsible for writing, instruction manuals of an automobile so that it's individual friendly. They give you instructions of how to deal with a machinery, an airplane, an automobile. Also, for a layman language, it is how machinery is operated and an appliance is operated. Simple. But remember, it deals with humans and their ability of cognition and thought process by providing them instructions. So they bridge the path between our understanding of an automobile or a machinery or an object. So this is again a very new thing which is coming up. And the next is which has taken its form in society already, which is Industrial and Organizational Psychology, a very well-paid job and a well-paid stream today, which talks about understanding behaviors and applying that understanding in the work setting. This involves from selection of employees, recruitment of employees, appraisals, work-related motivational activities and leadership skills to be identified. And application of this psychology not only deals with the problems of industry, but also supports the employees. The reason that we have an organizational psychologist in an environment of an organization is to support to bridge between the organization and the employee, to support the well-being and mental health of the employee, and to support the productivity at the same time of the organization. So that is also nowadays, we have started using aptitude, intelligence, and personality test in organizational psychology to have a better understanding of these people, to have a better understanding of the employees, so that we can benefit that the core of the employee can benefit the organization, and that core of the organization can mutually appraise the employee, support the employee, provide them benefits which can keep the output input chain going on all the time. This completes with industrial and organizational psychology. This is what they all do: policy making, employee testing, recruitment, training, development, or obviously overseeing analysis. They try to identify working styles and put you in terms of a horizontal promotion or a vertical promotion, and bring about your productivity and organization's productivity also. Then we come to something which is consumer psychology, a part of organization and industrial only. This is another field which focuses on consumer behavior, psychology for understanding consumers. The better that you understand consumers, the better that you sell the product. So this is consumer psychology. To increase the sale, we need to understand the psychology, the trend, the thought process of the consumers. Every industry depends on this ability to sell its product, and it's not only survival, it's also important for the growth and expansion of an organization to understand your consumers. From the time, if you find out, Noida has been coming to boom, and the economy of Noida started in 2001 when malls in Noida started coming in. The westernization started entering in. There was an uplift in the economic level at the time. When we got economic reforms by our finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, at that point of time, that was the time that the consumer psychology was going up, because we were coming to, raising the bar of economy, of having multiplexes, malls. Our livability was increasing. The finances of an earning income individual was increasing. So, that's how it's not only important for the industry itself, but also the growth and expansion of that product. So that talks about consumer psychology. Let's move to a new thing, which is education and sport. Education psychology is paramount in today's time. One of the psychology that deals in understanding of the system of education to uplift, provide effective approaches, techniques to make better lesson plans, to make socially and productively healthy environment for children. Educational psychology deals with making more policies, like the national education policy, which is undergoing change right now and is going to be applied, is something which is educational psychology. It talks about changing the classroom dynamics, the education facilities provided to children, learning types and procedures. So the education system and program is taken care by educational psychology. It's different from school. School is a smaller aspect. Education is a bigger aspect. So school is a part of educational psychology. It deals with understanding children within the school parameters. They understand difficulties of children who are not able to scale from one class to the other, have special needs and emotional problems, vocational needs, and we detect them, support them, and provide and improve their classroom learning environment. So that is also, from here also we talk about counselors and school psychologists are a part of school psychology that deals with understanding the needs of the school, what the school can provide to support a child's productivity. Children also, especially children are here, they are taken care of here, whereas their policies comes through education psychology. So this completes with education and school, and we come to sports psychology, again a new moving field which talks about study of psychological process which impacts sports. We need to know even sportsmen today require a support of sports psychology to boost up their morale, motivate them, take care of conflicts, coming from the head communities and organizations. So sports psychology is facilitating, knowing the psyche of the sportsmen, facilitating them, providing them, motivating them, keeping a healthy environment and team spirit with amongst all. The last is criminal and forensic. Forensic is actually an intersection between psychology and criminal justice system. It involves understanding the criminal laws in the judicial, and in order to able to interact approximately, appropriately with the judges, with the attorneys and legal officers. So forensic are usually the bridge and intersection between information providing to judges, attorney, support for testification support items is also given by forensic. Formulation, reformulation of an area of an evidence is also given by forensic. Forensic usually supports the criminal psychology, which is again a new set of psychology which is coming into play. Criminal psychology aims to uncover the psychological factors and motivation behind a criminal behavior. So it will answer questions like why criminal behaviors are happening, what could be the causes. We in criminal psychology talks about making a criminal profiling, which talks about the reasons, causes that could be responsible for criminal behavior, analyzing that behavior and leading that what would have intended them to do such an activity. So here at the same, when we talk about, we also understand the psychological and behavioral pattern of criminals to identify that what is the why the crime happened, what kind of crime could have been possible, and what kind of punishment to be given to these people. So that's why criminal psychology is again one of very important psychology today. We have at the moment criminal psychology in India has courses. India has courses here and also government jobs associated to criminal psychology. As defining differences that we talk about, forensic and criminal. Forensic psychologists are specializing in the aftermath of the crime, obviously, evidences, support, mental state, the victims, evaluating all the resources and counseling the victims and their families. Criminal psychology talks about determining the motive, feeling, intention, cause behind the perpetrator and profiles the perpetrator entirely. Coming to the environmental psychology in aviation, military becomes one of the last. So speaking of this, when we talk about environmental psychology, is a recent field of development where we understand the relationship between the environmental impacts on human and human impact on environments, which is human behavior. Global warming is a result of human interaction with the environment. The amount of global warming is because of the human behaviors. Our reckless, irresponsible behavior is leading to global warming at a greater level. So this is about understanding also. Being able to reside at a place which is environmentally cooling and nice is going to be impacting our psyche. So this is something which is a mix of two. Then we come to military and aviation, a very new psychology, not at the moment functional, but people are looking into it. Military is more challenging, where we support people, which is military officials and people at the time of war, supporting their family at the time of loss, counseling services to be provided to these people. And last is aviation, which talks about commercial piloting, and piloting is a very difficult job. So supporting them, helping them in terms of selection, training of the pilot personnel, making them understand the entire process and helping them operate at a greater level. This completes with application and completes today with general psychology with a holistic understanding of what psychology gives us on an introduction platform. This completes with BPC 171, BPCG 171, general psychology. Thank you.